Hello and welcome to the world as we see it. I apologise for the tardiness. I know it's not. Oh, good Lord, we've got a bit of feedback there. Apologies for the tardiness, and I've had a chat actually to Father David about this, and I'm going to get it off my chest straight away. I think we're going to start the stream half an hour later. Okay, I think from now on. Oh, Matthew Brian Healy is now following, which is lovely. Thank you, Matthew. That's really good to see. So we're going to be starting the stream 30 minutes later. And what that will give me a chance to do is finish everything I need to do with the Chinese teaching, finish everything I need to do with my family, and then have enough time to prepare, because I've cut it a bit fine, and I don't think it serves anyone very well. It means I very often have to either turn up late, which is unacceptable, or I'm oh look, and Father David has also liked the stream, so that's very good. So yeah, it's I think that's the best compromise. So from I think we'll do it from next week. So from Tuesday onwards, we'll be starting at 11 o'clock our time. Here in Thailand at the moment, it's about 20 to 11. And so we'll be starting at 11 o'clock in about 20 minutes time from then on. Tomorrow we'll leave it the same. I know it's a bit of a push, but we'll leave it the same tomorrow, and we'll start afresh from Tuesday. Now, welcome to there. We've got 2 viewers at the moment, so welcome to you. If this is the first time you've come and seen this transmission, then you're particularly welcome. And if you're a return visitor, then welcome back. Now, today we're going to be talking about the headlines of the Church Times. I think I spoke about this yesterday as the plan for the Friday, and I think it's a good time to go through the headlines and to see what's happened in the week, what's going on. And then after that, I'll give you a bit of a catch-up about what I've been doing for the Sarum course. And I hope, I hope that I won't be speaking about the Sarum course every day, but at the moment it's very fresh, and it's enjoyable. And so I'll give you a bit of an update there. And then after that, we will have a look at our nightly, or daily anyway, daily Tillich. We'll be doing a couple of pages of Tillich for those of you who want to stick around and watch that. So yeah, why not crack on, and we'll have a look. We'll go straight over to well, it's the browser. So we'll go straight over to the browser and have a look at the Church Times. So is it fitting on the page? It never does. It never does. We always have to adjust it just a little bit, don't we? So there's the Church Times, and it says, "Save the Parish campaigners have synod in their sights. A campaign to elect members to the General Synod under a Save the Parish banner was launched in London on Tuesday evening, with the warning that it was the last chance to save the system that has defined Christianity in this country for 1,000 years." I actually think that's very important. I think the idea of the parish is essential. I mean, I was reading earlier on today a post by somebody on Facebook that said that they were, it was either in Facebook or it was in the introductory forum with Sarum. Somebody is they're the incumbent of, and I hope to get the words right, so forgive me if I don't, but an incumbent of a beneface with 16 churches in it. And when you're looking at something like that, I can't help but think that maybe they're really stretched. I can't imagine how one individual could cover that sort of thing. And of course, I know that there are pressures to bring different churches together, and it makes sense to me in some cases where there are 2 or 3 churches coming together. That makes sense to me. I think that happened in Faversham. There are 3 or 4 churches brought together, and that made sense. It was quite small. It was very local. 16 seems a lot. I don't know. Views, please. If you've got views, then please do get in touch. Do comment. Do engage in the conversation. I'd love to hear more from you. So now, co-founder of Hillsong charged with failing to report abuse allegations. Brian Houston, the co-founder of the Sydney-based Pentecostal church Hillsong, been charged with failing to report allegations of child sexual abuse dating to the 1970s. I mean, I'm speechless. Law enforcement obviously would not charge without having their ducks in a row. Of course, charged doesn't mean guilty. So we need to be very careful when we're looking at these sorts of things. But that's a real shame. It's if true, dreadful, ghastly. So let's have a look at the next one. 2 listed church buildings: Christchurch in Chiselmore, South Coventry, Calvary Charismatic Baptist Church in Tower Hamlets, East London, have been upgraded from Grade 2 to Grade 2 Star 2, mark the 70th anniversary of the Festival of Britain this summer. And I think that's really important, the idea of protecting some of these churches. I think I've mentioned before that I'm a member of a brilliant group on Facebook. It's a desperately tragic group on Facebook, which looks at the churches which have been lost within London, and there's another group which are churches which have been lost outside of London, and the whole thread, the stream, is all about church buildings which have been demolished. Very rarely does it show church buildings which have been converted to another use. They tend to have been demolished, and they tend to have been demolished in the 1960s and 70s, very often 80s and 90s, and occasionally even this century, which I'm shocked at whenever I see them. Some of them are desperately sad because they're beautiful buildings. So another nice headline there: future of most churches is viable if they serve communities. And I think this is very important. Churches in some cases have lost their place in community, have lost their function inside as like the I know it's a cliche, the idea of a beating heart of the community. Churches, because of increasing secularization of society, I suppose, but also because of a lack of engagement in community, except for their own community. Some churches really have lost touch with where they are, and it's no surprise, I suppose, that they end up being, not viable. Other churches are really engaged in their local community, doing all manner of different work, and to all in line gospel work, supporting the poor, supporting folk who need help, and of course, if they are the beating heart of a community, then actually you would expect that they should be viable. Very good. Okay, now a couple of comments there, and I haven't read these comments. I didn't go down this far, but we will have a look, and if there's anything that jumps out at us, then we will chat about it. So a few jobs there going. Look, a job in Scotland and a job in the Northwest. Director of Music, London and home counties. Very good. And then it comes to the bottom. Right, so we've got a few headlines down the side there as well. So Save the Parish, Bishop of Southwark lifts a vicar's suspension. PCC accuses Southwark Diocese of weaponising safeguarding against a vicar. And I'll talk about safeguarding momentarily, because that's very apt. And I really like this. This was interesting. I like this. The tests on Canterbury Cathedral stained glass finds links with ancient Egypt and Imperial Rome. Let's have a look at that, because that looks like a very interesting, oops, oh no. So can we sign in? I mean, we've got the subscription, so we should be able to just sign in. I don't know why it's not. Anyway, so scientists have discovered Britain's oldest large-scale stained glass works of art in Canterbury Cathedral. Their tests reveal stained glass figures portraying 4 ancestors of Christ were made for a rebuild of the eastern half of the cathedral in the early mid-12th century. It allows art historians to reconstruct theoretically for the first time the important aspects of the internal door of the Norman Cathedral, England's most important ecclesiastical building. So, now, the new scientific and historical research also tells a story involving aspects of ancient Egypt, Imperial Rome, and English Puritan iconoclasm. Although the stained glass figures were created in the first half of the 12th century, perhaps in or around 1130, amazing how they can work this out. Tests on other ecclesiastical stained glass from England and France suggest that parts of the Canterbury figures were made of remelted ancient Roman glass, manufactured about 1,000 years earlier. Isn't that incredible? Isn't that amazing? And I honestly, one of the things which fires my imagination, one of the things that really does, I think, engages me in the work of the church, is how it enables me to plug into something which has been around for such a long time, for so many centuries, millennia, and here's more proof, right? Incredible. So it says they or their suppliers had therefore almost certainly obtained their cobalt by melting down thousands of Roman blue cobalt-coloured glass cubes used in Roman wall mosaics, many of them located in Italy. Wonderful, wonderful. I think that's great. So I encourage everyone, have a look at the Church Times. It's fantastic, and full of great stuff. And I know I've skipped over it and missed out lots of, I'm sure, very important things. You're very welcome to please get in touch. If you think I should have mentioned something, then just tell me, and we can always revisit this over the next couple of days. Okay? So very good. Now we're going to go back to me, back in the room, as they say. Meanwhile, back on the ranch, and we're going to talk about safeguarding, because as part of the Sarum course, I was directed to engage with a safeguarding hub, and I started the basic awareness course in safeguarding today, and it took about an hour and a half online. It talks about the definitions of abuse. It talks about the responsibility, not just legally but theologically as well. It uses the gospel throughout the course and enables us to reflect on our responsibilities to make sure that everyone who is vulnerable is safe. It talks about what we do when we have concerns, about the responsibility of every parish to have a safeguarding officer, and the the role of confidentiality in the process too, ensuring that everyone understands that confidentiality and data protection does not stand in the way of doing the right thing and protecting the vulnerable. Okay, so a couple of bits there which could be controversial, but actually is very straightforward. As soon as you pause for a moment and think about it, then you realise that, well, that sounds like common sense. If there are children or vulnerable adults at risk of any manner of abuse, and it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, I suppose, all manner of different abuses, then those abuses or the concerns relating to those abuses can be reported, and referrals made to the appropriate agencies and investigations undertaken by the appropriate people, and those vulnerable folk who are in our communities who do come to church are therefore protected, safeguarded, and at a reduced risk because appropriate action has been taken. So I thought that it was a very good, thorough, basic awareness course, and I'm very pleased to say that I got all the way through it and got the certificate, and so I'm quite pleased about that. So I'll be going on to do the next step, which I think is called Foundation. So I'll be doing that next, and no doubt I'll be coming back here and reporting on it to you as soon as I've completed it. Now, the next thing we're going to be doing is, now that I've spoken about the Church Times and I've been talking about safeguarding, I think we're going over to Tillich. So, without further ado, it's such a heavy volume, 427 pages. It obviously has just a lot in it. So let's get to where we were. Where were we? And oh no! I worried for a moment that maybe the bookmark had got lost. I thought, oh no! That was close. So we're on to section 10, the final revelation, overcoming the conflict of absolutism and relativism. And so we are reading, this is, for any who don't know, this is Paul Tillich's Systematic Theology. We've got 427 pages to read. And it was kindly given to me as a task by Father Tom, who's the former parish of St George's congregation here in Pattaya in Thailand. And Father Tom gave this to me because this is something that he studied when he was in seminary school. And I think then, when he was there, it was a rather new book. It was a rather new theological system. I think it was published in something like 1978, I think, or if not before. So anyway, look, let's crack on. We're on number 10, the final revelation, overcoming the conflict of absolutism and relativism. Now, and forgive me if when we hit some of these very long words, if I slow down today. We've had a busy day in the classroom, so my eyes are a bit tired. We've been reading all day, one way or the other. So we'll see how we get on. The aim, let's see how long number 10 is. I think we can get all the way to number 11, which is going to be three and a third, so 3 and a bit pages, and then we'll stop before carrying on with number 11 tomorrow. So it says, final revelation does not destroy reason. It fulfills reason. It liberates reason from the conflict between heteronomy and autonomy by giving the basis for a new theonomy, and it liberates reason from the conflict between absolutism and relativism by appearing in the form of a concrete absolute. In the new beginning, which is manifest in Jesus as the Christ, the most concrete of all possible forms of concreteness, a personal life, is the bearer of that which is absolute without condition and restriction. This concrete personal life has achieved what neither criticism nor pragmatism is able to accomplish, namely, to unite the conflicting poles of existential reason, as criticism, with its emphasis on the merely formal character of its principle, deceives itself about its assumed lack of absolutistic. I don't know if that dog's disturbing you, but it's disturbing me, so we're going to see whether or not my wifey wife is going to let it through a gate, through the child gates at the top of the stairs, or not. We'll see. If it carries on, we'll give it another half a page, but if it carries on for too long, then I'm going to have to pause for a moment, run out and let it through the gate. This is real life, isn't it? This is just real life, so apologies. So as criticism, with its emphasis on the merely formal character of its principle, deceives itself about its assumed lack of absolutistic elements, so pragmatism, with its emphasis on complete openness for everything, deceives itself about its assumed lack of absolutistic elements. Neither of them faces the problem radically enough, because neither of them can give the solution. The solution can come only out of the depth of reason, not from its structure. It can come only from final revelation. The logical form in which the perfectly concrete and the perfectly absolute are united in the paradox. All biblical and ecclesiastical assertions about the final revelation have a paradoxical character. They transcend ordinary opinion, not only preliminarily, but definitively. They cannot be expressed in terms of the structure of reason, but must be expressed in terms of the depth of reason. If they are expressed in ordinary terms, logically contradictory statements appear. But these contradictions are not the paradox, and no one is asked to swallow them as contradictions. This is not only impossible, but destructive. The paradox is the reality to which the constructing form points. It is the surprising miraculous, the ecstatic way in which that which is the mystery of being universally is manifest in time, space, and under the conditions of existence, in complete historical concreteness. Final revelation is not logical nonsense. It is a concrete event which on the level of rationality must be expressed in contradictory terms. The concrete side of final revelation appears in the picture of Jesus as the Christ. The paradoxical Christian claim that this picture has unconditional and universal validity, that it is not subject to the attacks of positivistic or cynical relativism, that it is not absolutistic, whether in the traditional or the revolutionary sense, and that it cannot be achieved either by the critical or by the pragmatic compromise. It is unique, and beyond all these conflicting elements, the methods of existential reason. This implies above all that no special trait of this picture can be used as an absolute law. The final revelation does not give us absolute ethics, absolute doctrines, or an absolute ideal of personal and communal life. It gives us examples which points to that which is absolute. But the examples are not absolute in themselves. I am going to go and let that dog through the gate. So apologies for pausing there, but we have to. There's nothing that can be done. Now, oops. Oh no, I think actually someone's going to do it now. So that's very good. There we are. So we've got somebody outside, my little boy, and I think he's come out and he's going to show his mum probably that the dog is locked behind the child gate. He's also going to try and break in this door here, which is locked today. So it says, it belongs to the tragic character of all life that the church, although it is based on the concrete absolute, continuously tends to distort its paradoxical meaning and to transform the paradox into absolutisms of a cognitive and moral character. This necessarily provokes relativistic reactions. If Jesus is understood as the divine teacher of absolute theoretical and practical truth, the paradoxical nature of his appearance is misunderstood. If, in opposition to this misunderstanding, he is understood as a religious founder, conditioned by the situation of his time and by the structure of his personality, he is equally misunderstood. In the first case, the concreteness is sacrificed. In the second case, the absoluteness. In both cases, the paradox has disappeared. The new being in Jesus as the Christ is the paradox of the final revelation. The words of Jesus and the apostles point to this new being. They make it visible through stories, legends, symbols, paradoxical descriptions, and theological interpretations. But none of these expressions of the experience of the final revelation is final and absolute in itself. They are all conditioned, relative, open to change. I don't know if you heard that, but my little boy is running around, obviously being tickled by his mother, shouting and screaming, and it's lovely. Now, they are all conditioned, relative, open to change, and additions. The absolute side of the final revelation, that in it, which is unconditional and unchanging, involves the complete transparency and the complete self-sacrifice of the medium in which it appears. Every concrete occurrence in the event Jesus as the Christ discloses these qualities. No situation which Jesus faced and no act through which he met it establishes an absolutism of dogmatic or moral character. Both situations and act are transparent and not binding in themselves. Although potentially absolute, they are sacrificed in the moment they occur. Whoever makes Jesus the Christ into a giver of absolute laws for thinking and acting opens the dike for a revolutionary revolt on the one hand, and relativistic undercutting on the other hand, both of them justifiable. There is, however, an absolute law that can stand under the criticism of finality, because it is not denied in the act of self-sacrifice, but rather fulfilled. The law of love is the ultimate law, because it is the negation of law. It is absolute because it concerns everything concrete. The paradox of final revelation overcoming the conflict between absolutism and relativism is love. The love of Jesus as the Christ, which is the manifestation of the divine love, and only this, embraces everything concrete in self and world. Love is always love. That is its static and absolute side. But love is always dependent on that which is loved, and therefore it is unable to force finite elements on finite existence in the name of an assumed absolute. The absoluteness of love in its power to go into the concrete situation, to discover what is demanded by the predicament of the concrete to which it turns. Therefore, love can never become fanatical in a fight for an absolute, or cynical under the impact of the relative. This refers to all realms of rational creativity. Where the paradox of final revelation is present, neither cognitive nor aesthetic, neither legal nor communal absolutes can stand. Love conquers them without producing cognitive skepticism, or aesthetic chaos, or lawlessness, or estrangement. The final revelation makes action possible. There is something paradoxical in every action. It always contains a conflict of absolutism and relativism. It is based on decision. But to decide for something as true or as good means excluding countless other possibilities. Every decision is, in some respect, absolutistic, resisting the skeptical temptation of epoch. It is a risk, rooted in the courage of being, threatened by the excluded possibilities, many of which might have been better and truer than the chosen one. These possibilities take their revenge, often in very destructive ways. The escape into non-action being very tempting. Final revelation conquers the conflict between the absolutistic character and the relativistic fate of every decision and action. It shows that the right decision must sacrifice its claim to be the right decision. There are no right decisions. There are trials and defeats and successes. But there are decisions which are rooted in love, which are resigning and the absolute. Do not fall into the relative. They are not exposed to the revenge of the excluded possibilities because they were and still are open for them. No decision can be annihilated, no action can be undone, but love gives meaning even to those decisions and actions which prove to be failures. The failures of love do not lead to resignation, but to new decisions beyond absolutism and relativism. The final revelation overcomes the conflict between absolutism and relativism in active decisions. Oops. Gaming with Steve is now following, so that's really good. Thank you, Gaming with Steve. Welcome. Love conquers the revenge of the excluded possibilities. It is absolute as love and relative in every love relationship. So, Gaming with Steve, I'm sorry to say that you've caught us at the very end of the reading of Paul Tillich. So this is section 10 of the chapter The Reality of Revelation. So we've read our 3.5 pages, which we try to cover at least 2 pages a night. We've got 427 pages to read, and it's Paul Tillich's systematic theology. So look, wonderful to know that we've got one new follower on Twitch. So Gaming with Steve obviously either followed the URL on Facebook or YouTube, and came to see us on Twitch and followed us there, or he's an existing Twitch member and stumbled upon us maybe and decided to follow us. So that's wonderful. So thank you for that, Gaming with Steve. And that's finishing up. That's a real joy. We've got one more Twitch follower. So that's success. That really is success. If you are watching this on Facebook or YouTube, or if you're looking at it on Twitch, please do remember to have a look down there, and there's a follow button, or there's a subscribe button, or there's a share button, or a like button, and you can do all of those things. And please, the more you can help us spread the word, that would be very, very helpful. Now, as we do every evening, what we tend to do at this time of night is we go over to the dailycommonworship.com and have a look at the night prayer, where we will say the collect. Father in heaven, whose Son Jesus Christ was wonderfully transfigured before chosen witnesses upon the holy mountain, and spoke of the exodus he would accomplish at Jerusalem, give us strength so to hear his voice and bear our cross, that in the world to come we may see him as he is, who is alive and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen. So thank you for joining us. We've had, I think, a successful stream, a successful transmission. We've got one more follower, Gaming with Steve. We've had two wonderful followers on Facebook. Both David Price has liked it, and Matthew Brian Healy has followed. So thank you very much for your support there. I'm going to say, without carrying on, without any further ado, I'm off to Bedfordshire now. It's 11:15, and so with prayers and